Okay, I am hoping that this live does not glitch because it doesn't tell me when it glitches. I'm gonna be so mad. Um, because then it messes up my clips later. But anyways, today we're gonna talk about when you go through the internal transformation in business and what does that mean? What is the internal transformation in business? This is the moment in business where you can feel yourself transitioning from the idea of I want to have a business, I want to run a business, to like really being able to fully embody the woman who does run the business, right? Because there's a lot of internal changes that happen that not a lot of people talk about, until it's done, if they talk about it at all. So that's what we're going to tackle today is what is this internal transformation that comes from your intuition and makes you intuitively led in business. What is the transformation that takes you from looking around to others for approval and not just guidance, but like approval and is this okay, and what do you think about this and things like that, versus like the process of transforming into somebody who was like, this is the download I received, this is what I'm going to put out, this is what I'm going to do, right? What does all of that look like? And so let's get into it. So when we think about our business and going from idea into operation into full embodiment, right? So we have the idea first, the business idea, and then we take the idea and we map out a plan. And when mapping out that plan, we don't think about who do I need to be to make this plan happen. All we think about is like, this is the strategy, this is the plan, so this is what we're going to do, right? And so when we get into it like that, then we start doing, right? Then we get into the process, the part of the doing, and we're doing the business, we're doing the things that we think we're supposed to be doing. And then what happens is all of a sudden you start to feel a whole mess of resistance. You are like, wait a second, this is not as easy as that ad I saw the other day. This is not just falling in my lap like going to a job would, right? This is not just bringing in money the same way that a paycheck would, right? Because it's a different process. And so we hit this part of business where we realize it's going to take more work than we thought. And when you hit this part of business, then this is where people fall off, right? This is when people are like, never mind, it's not for me, right? But then you have the 1%. And the 1% are the people who keep going despite this. And when they hit this part, they recognize that, sorry, I thought I heard my kids outside. They recognize that there is an intuitive process, an internal transformation that they then have to go through, right? And when you start to go through this intuitive and internal transformation for business, you start to look into your belief systems. You start to see like, okay, these are the thoughts that are holding me back, right? When you have the download to go and do the business, and then you tune into your intuition is probably, if you do any visualization exercise or anything like that, your intuition is probably showing you like, hey, this is actually the bigger vision. This is, you can see like the bank account, you can see the house that you want, you can see, the lifestyle that you have, you can see the lifestyle that your children have, right? You can see all of these things when you sit and you do visualization stuff, but then you look around and reality doesn't look like that. Well, now starts the process of transformation. And so when we get into this transformation process, then the belief systems start to come up, and the belief systems start to tell us like, hold on, like this goes against everything that we know, right? And so if we look at the example of like wealth and middle class, right? For example, and transforming, when you visualize, you see wealth. When you look around you, you still see middle class, right? And you still have a lot of middle class thought processes. So one of the big things that always comes up is money, right? You have to spend money to make money. That's a big thing, right? And so when we look at like the way the wealth see money as something to be invested, whereas the middle class sees money as something to be managed, and then the poverty class sees it as something to be spent. And so when you make an investment because you've been divinely led, intuitively led, right? You've invested in your business. You've taken that step into the investment. The reason that you start to freak out is because you still have like middle class belief systems around money, right? You still have these old belief systems, and that's what comes up. That's what you start to feel, in your nervous system and things like that. And so when you feel that, then you panic. Then you're like, oh my goodness, this was all wrong. This was not, where I was supposed to go and things like that. But that's because you haven't changed. You're in a transformation. You're in the midst of a transformation. You haven't changed that belief system. You are now looking at what you just invested in as an expense instead of an investment. And so you're looking and you're like, let's say you sign up for a payment plan, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, I just made this payment. How am I going to make the next payment in 30 days? And all of these things, right? All of these crazy thoughts start coming in, and you can feel your chest tightening and you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Right? You're looking at it as an expense. Not only are you looking at it as an expense, but you're also like, why are you stressed out about a bill 30 days from now when you've made an investment? You see what I'm saying? If you've made the investment, then you don't need to be worried about what's going to happen in a month. A whole lot of stuff can change in a month, especially if you are being guided through your intuition. A whole lot can change in a month. And so when you're looking and you're stressed out about the payment that you have in 30 days, you just made a payment and now you're worried about, another payment in 30 days. Well, where's your faith, for one? Second, like that belief system, you have to change it. You have to change it to look at it from not being an expense to being an investment. And when you look at it as an investment, then it starts to not seem so scary. Then it starts to not panic, right? One of the things that I recently heard when it came to money, it was actually a download that I received. And it was like, why are you stressed about a payment that's not even here yet? Why are you stressed about a payment that's coming up in 30 days? Like, focus on what you need to pay today and focus on the money that you have today. Because for all you know, like my business owners out there, like you have no idea what clients are being sent to you. You have no idea what invoices are coming to you, right? Your job is to simply operate on the frequency that the money is always available. The money is always going to be there, right? Or operate on the wealth frequency of the money that you have is already working for you. It's being invested, right? You made an investment in your business. You're going to see a return, even if it's not the type of return that you thought you would see on the first investment, right? Oftentimes we invest into something in the very beginning. I was guilty of this. Not guilty, but like I did it. And you invest in something in the very, very beginning and you expect all of these things to come, right? And so this is like taking it back to the beginning when you first have the idea to start a business, and then you start making the investments to do the business, but you haven't done the internal transformation yet. Well, all of a sudden, but I see somebody named Scott Parker who joined. That was my favorite hockey player. That's so funny. Anyways, you see you've made the investment and you haven't done the transformation, and then the program is done, right? And you did not get an ROI. You did not get money back on it. And so you look at it one of two ways. You look at it as a failure, or you look at it as a stepping stone. And when you're brand new, if you're brand new and that's your first investment and you thought you were going to get rich the first time and all of these things, well, then you will possibly look at it as a failure. As time goes on and you carry on through the internal transformation of learning how to be present with yourself, learning how to listen to your intuition, learning how to restructure your belief systems, learning how to restructure who you are on the inside, then you start to see that there were no bad investments, right? Because even if that investment didn't get you the money back right away, it probably got you connections. And connections is another trait of the wealthy, right? Another code, if you will. They're all about connections. And so as you move through, as you continue on, as you keep going, as you decide I'm not going to quit, because quitting is not an option, right? Quitting is not an option in this business. I'm going to have this business no matter what it takes. Then you'll make another investment. And then you'll make another investment. And then you will start to see the ROIs coming back. The ROIs are either going to come back in the form of money or in the form of more connections. Both are valuable. Both are very beneficial. I know for me, right, when I remember I invested in a program and I didn't make money in that program. And in all fairness, in hindsight, I didn't work it the way that I was supposed to, but I got a lot of connections from that. And from those connections, is where I was actually able to understand that I needed to undergo a transformation, right? And so it was from gaining these connections in this community. This was back in like 2021. From gaining these connections in this community, that's actually what led me on the spiritual journey, and that's what led me on the intuitive journey. And that's when I started hiring mentors who could help me strengthen my own intuition and help me tap into my gifts and help me to uncover belief systems that needed to change and all of these things. It helped me go through that. And as it helped me go through that, well, then I was able to do my own internal transformation. And then that's when business started to make a lot more sense. And that's when I was able to realize that it goes beyond strategy. Business always, it goes beyond being strategic. There's so many strategies out there. And I've said it before, like all strategies work if you stick with it, right? You just have to stick to it. You need to learn sales, you need to learn marketing, and then you need to pick a strategy, and then you just need to follow through on the strategy. And that's fine. That's actually the easiest part. The challenging part is going through the internal transformation and is rewiring your subconscious to be able to believe that the strategy is working even when you don't see it working, because it's not always going to work right away. It takes some time, right? And so it's being able to hold the belief that the strategy is going to work even when it feels like it's not, right? Like holding the faith, that's the word I'm looking for. Holding the faith that it's going to see its way through. Let's see. So as you come into that momentum, that transformation, then the work that you're doing, the strategy that you're following, it doesn't feel so difficult. It doesn't feel like you're pulling teeth. Even if it's hard, even if it feels hard, and it's just a feeling, like feelings are fleeting, right? We feel things in one day. You could feel happy, sad, mad, angry, frustrated, all, you know what I mean? In one day you can feel all of these feelings, which is why you can't base your business off of feelings, because the business is going to be up and down like a roller coaster, right? You have to focus on the strategy and on staying grounded internally, right? Regardless of all the feelings that you have going on around you. That's not going to build the business. Feelings are not going to build it. So with that, I completely lost my train of thought. It's okay. Taking it back, let's take it back to the difference in the mindsets of moving from the middle class up into the wealth class. When it comes back to the money and making the investments in your business, that is already wealth conscious thinking. When you are making your investments and you are not worried about managing the money, you are more concerned with, I'm just going to make more money, because I understand that the more money I make, the more I can invest. And investments do not always look like investments to get back money, right? Like there are health investments, there are wellness investments, like all of these things. When you stop looking at everything as an expense and you start looking at these things as investments, well, then it does not feel so limited. And it doesn't feel like, lack of money or anything like that, because you know that there's compound growth. You know that even if you invest in something that doesn't necessarily have a dollar amount of an ROI, that the transformation it's going to take you on is going to lead you to be able to produce a dollar amount ROI somewhere else, right? You see what I'm saying? And so that's the difference between thinking about money as investments and thinking about money as expenses, right? There are different codes. There's like a code of conduct, if you will. Everything has a code. Everything has a code. The wealth have a code. The middle class have a code. The poverty class has a code. The freaking, your job has a code, like a code of conduct. You know what I mean? Like you have to follow that code of conduct. And the thing of it is, if you don't like that code, well, then you find a new job and you find a new code of conduct to follow, right? And so it's the same thing. If you don't like the reality around you and the codes that you're operating in, well, then you need to learn the new codes so that you can move up into the coded section that you want to be in, right? You have to learn how to play that game. It's the same thing like in corporate politics really parallel into life politics, especially here in the United States, right? You have your different classes, and when you have your different classes, the different classes have the different codes. Corporate politics, you have your different politics, right? To get into the different areas of corporate. And when you look around and you look at the programming that's happening, if you watch the media, if you watch television, right? So let me give you an example. In When it comes to food, in the wealth class they look at presentation, in the middle class they look at quality, and I believe, don't quote me, I think the poverty class it's all about like taste, like how did it taste, I think. And so if we look at the way the society is structured in these codes, right, and then you look at the media, look at the advertisements that you see, right, especially like late night advertisements, right, it's always about food. There's always a lot of food commercials, right? Check out this new burger at Carl's Jr. Oh, look at our new $5 deal. Well, it's like a $7 deal now, but look at our new $7 deal here, right? Like it's always like there's a lot of food commercials at night. Why do you think that is? Because if it is, see, the commercial does the presentation good, but the commercial emphasizes the cost and the taste, right? Those are the two things that they emphasize. They don't necessarily emphasize the presentation. And so when they're emphasizing the quality and or the taste or whatever, that's to keep society down. And I don't mean down like down and out. I mean like that's to keep you, that's all subliminal programming to keep you within the mindset of like of the poverty class or the middle class. You look at that and now you're thinking like, oh, you know what? I'm hungry. I want to go eat. Let's go get something that tastes good, right? Fast food does not look good. Even if you eat it, I'm not even judging you if you eat it. It does, there's no presentation to it whatsoever. It doesn't look good. But that commercial has a little bit of presentation, but then the commercial emphasizes the taste. And that is the programming that we receive day in and day out, especially if you watch TV. Whether or not you eat fast food, whether or not you go and get that Carl's Jr. burger, the thing of it is your subconscious has taken it in. The idea of taste, the idea of just the quality, right? It didn't really take in much on the presentation. And as it's taking it in, these are the subliminal things that keep you within like the middle and poverty class and haven't moved you past the wealth class. When you start going and dining, let's say at like 5-star restaurants, right? High-end restaurants where the focus is the presentation. Now that's one way, like you're retraining your subconscious brain. You rewire the brain to recognize subconsciously what wealth looks like instead of subconsciously taking in the fast food commercial and going off of the quality. Or, and I wouldn't even say quality, just the taste that is being advertised. And I'm gonna use Carl's Jr. because they had like, I just remember like that girl with the burger. You know what I mean? Like they always made it sound like it tasted good. So that is one of the things about subliminal programming, right? And then when we get these subliminal programs, then we have to rewire the belief systems. And it's not just about rewiring the belief systems that were passed down from, from our parents and grandparents. The media is here to keep us there, right? When we think about, okay, so in another thing with the different classes, right? And going back to the codes. So like poverty class is about inclusion, whereas the wealth class is about exclusion. And then I forgot what the middle class is about. I didn't write that one down. So when we think about taking it back to mainstream media and commercials, when we look at these commercials, what else do we see? A lot of inclusion, a lot of inclusivity, right? I think that's the word. People gathered around to eat. That's another trait of like middle class, right? Everything's about food. Like, oh, let's get together and eat. Let's get together and barbecue. Let's get together and do this, right? Let's food. And so when we look at television, look at Thanksgiving. When we look at television though, and we see the same commercials like teaching us subliminally, it's all subliminal, that this is how it's supposed to be. Well, then with the wealth being into exclusion and us feeling left out, now we're in our emotions about feeling left out. But we have been subconsciously programmed to believe that inclusion is the answer for everything, when the wealth class doesn't necessarily believe in inclusion. They believe in exclusion. And so that's the different codes, right? But the codes are constantly in the subconscious brain. And that's where we have to come through and rewire the beliefs. Why do you think If you are from middle class, like most of us are, why do you think once you start moving onwards and upwards and you start, going off to do big things and kind of going off to your own, why do you think all of a sudden, like, people start talking like, oh, did you see what she's up to? Yeah, she thinks she's better than us. She thinks she's doing better than us. Because you're coming into a place of exclusion, right? You're learning a new code. You're coming into a new coded area, and they don't understand that. Thank you for the follow, Jenny. They don't understand that. They're still at this level code and you're coming into this level code, right? It's the same like I mentioned earlier with corporate politics. Have you ever had a good coworker get promoted, and when the good coworker gets promoted, then all of a sudden, like, the coworker's in obviously a new level of corporate politics, and because he or she is in a new level of corporate politics, now you have your retail associates being like, oh, she works in the big office now. She thinks she's all big and bad. Like, she's up there now. Oh, she climbed the ladder. And all of a sudden there's a disconnect because it's coded differently. Everything is coded differently. And so when you want to move, you have to change the code. And then as you change the code, then you get to move up. And when you move up, the other people who are not adapted to that new code, well, they're going to stay put. They're going to stay where they were and they're not going to understand you. Now there's a disconnect. And when you get into that disconnect, taking it back to the internal transformation in business, that's when things start to get uncomfortable for you if you are not grounded, because the metamorphosis process and going through the transformation is not always rainbows and butterflies. If you think of a freaking caterpillar who turns into a butterfly and has to go into that ugly cocoon, once you get into that ugly cocoon, it is, to my understanding, they turn into goo. That sounds gross. That does not sound fun. And so you get into this goo state and you're in this goo state. And I'm pretty sure like the other caterpillars are like, why is he building that? That's so weird. And then like, the caterpillar sees like the butterfly, like, I'm going to be the butterfly, right? That's such a silly explanation. I don't know. I don't know if caterpillars know what they're doing. So we're going to say maybe the worm looks at the caterpillar. Anyways, let's get back on track. My point is, when you're in the midst of that transformation, things start to feel uncomfortable because your beliefs and your reality are not necessarily up where you need to be. And yet you're also not 100% where you used to be. You know what I mean? You're in what I've heard it referred to as like the messy middle. And I think that's a really perfect phrase. So you're in like this messy middle where you're like, I still have these beliefs. Like, I still stress about money sometimes, but I also know that I don't need to stress about money, right? But you haven't completely completed the transformative process to not stress about money. That's why you're still thinking about these bills that are coming up in 30 days when, like, I'm like, you just paid it. Why are you worried about the next one? So much can happen, right? Like, that's just old belief systems that need to be retrained. They haven't been transformed yet. Those beliefs haven't been transformed yet. And so you hold on to them. And so the transformation starts to just feel odd, and it feels uncomfortable, and it feels messy. But if you operate your business on feelings, well, then you're going to stop every single time you have a transformation, because transformations don't always feel good. If you think about going on a sobriety journey, and I've gone on them before, if you think about going on a sobriety journey, before you make the full decision to get sober on any substance, and one day I'll tell you all stories because I've done a lot, but the time you make the decision to get sober, you have this weird transformative like part where you know that you need to quit the substance. You're like, I absolutely need to quit this. This is detrimental. It's not working for me. And yet you can understand life on the other side. You see other people doing life on the other side, but you just don't understand how it is within, right? You haven't figured out, like, if we're using sobriety as an example, you need to quit, but then like to let go of something like that, it feels scary on the other side because you've never been on that side. And so with stuff like that, like that's, with the transformation and stuff, it's going to feel scary, but then you cannot operate on feelings. You have to trust the process, really. You have to trust the process and then keep going. That's where strategy comes back in. You find the strategy that works for you and that aligns with the business vision, and then no matter what internal transformation you're going through, you're still going to stick to the strategy. And that's the difference between the people who win at this and the people who quit at this. So that sums that up when it comes to internal transformation in business. I should be live tomorrow. If not, I will be live all next week because I missed a lot this week. So with that being said, if you want any more like internal transformation guidance, intuitive guidance in business, in my bio, there is a free business vision meditation and journaling guide. It's completely guided. It helps you like it helps you get in touch with your higher self and then figure out what you need to do to become the CEO in business, as well as what you need to release. So you can grab that if you are a writer and you're into like writing, you want to learn more about intuitive writing, you want to do writing for your business. I also have 65 free journal prompts in my bio for women entrepreneurs. And then the last thing is for people who are ready to really go on an internal transformation, you can grab Intuitive Writing Mastery in my bio. That is a course that takes you through your future, present, and past self, along with guided meditations, guided journaling, things like that, so that you can really like uncover what needs to be uncovered so that you can make new belief systems and learn new codes. Until then, I'll see you all next time. Bye.